what seems like forever, we're back. I don't know if it's me or if it's in blue or damaged, but one of y'all have been missing in action.
Really, Jason? One of us? One of us?
Look, I have been on what seems like a vacation forever, but I'm not really on vacation. I'm actually working. I went to Miami, then Aruba, then I think
Hmm.
New York, then back to LA, then back to Aruba, then back to Miami. Now I'm back in New York. And even though the
Hard
work
work.
doesn't stop, I feel like I've gotten out all that suppressed anger and frustration of not being able to travel because of the pandemic. And now that I have found myself getting on beaches, being out in the sun, seeing other human beings, being able to enjoy breathing again outside. I mean, I don't know. I just haven't wanted to go back to LA where everything is shut down because it's still shut down, right?
Yeah. Well, is it? Is it
I
kind
don't
of?
know. This sun cracked open and it's feeling good out here, Jason. But I can't compare it to Miami and what you've been doing in Aruba. But it's definitely a vibe out here in LA. I will say that.
I wish
Yeah,
I was
but
doing work kissing boys on the beach, but yeah, it's hard work.
baby, let me tell you something. I just ate a whole cheese it in the middle of a show. I'm at a point in my life where I'm just gonna wake up and live my life and do what I want to do. I recently posted on my Instagram a video of me talking about, the situation I went through where somebody called me a faggot, and the reason why
Mm.
I've been posting me being a little less um, closed off to being affectionate with people in public is that I realized that people tolerated me and accepted the toleration, but didn't fully
Hmm.
tolerate or didn't fully accept me. And so as I've seen that, I've noticed that I've been posting my affection towards other people of the same sex on my page, less about wanting to get all the attention, more about looking at it as a social study, seeing how people react. I lost 5,000
Right.
followers when I posted the photo with my friend in Aruba. And it was very telling to me that homophobia is a real thing. And I've just been privileged to kind of fly under the veil of looking and acting straight, that I felt that I needed to show up and be better representation for my community. And, this is just a lesson that I'm learning. I do want to show everybody the clip that I just posted on my Instagram real quick, and then let's get into it. I really never dealt with homophobia as a young person because growing up in the early 80s, 90s, being gay was just something new. And in my community, even though it wasn't something super popular, I kind of flew under the veil of living a straight life and living a straight lifestyle for the most part. And so I didn't get attacked like other people may get attacked. And so I never really had the experience as a gay person living in America. And then once I got on TV, I realized that I was still somewhat afraid of really showing that part of me because I felt like I didn't want to be labeled or typecast or put in a box. It wasn't until I got to Wild 'N Out that I said, okay, cool, I'm going to use my platform to be an example for young LGBTQ kids who see themselves as somebody who couldn't make mainstream success, but then that maybe they see themselves through me and get the courage to pursue greater things and to be able to tackle their dreams. And so when I was called a few weeks ago, it really hit me hard to the core because everybody knows that I'm out here and I'm lit and I'm popping, I'm successful, and I have a lot of friends who are heterosexual, who are wealthy. I have friends who are in the streets, and I can move around and code switch anywhere I go, and I'm embraced everywhere I go. But when that happened to me, it did affect me in a real personal way. And so I've been dealing with it behind the scenes. One, I had to come to grip with somebody actually called me. Somebody actually attacked me. Somebody actually attacked me for being who I am, a gay man, a proud gay man. And then I had to try to resolve it in a way that was productive and not destructive, right? Because I had to make sure that I used my platform responsibly. And so what I did was I told the person that I want them to make a donation on my behalf of $50,000 to organizations that help to eradicate bullying of kids that are LGBT, to provide services, testing, to be able to provide housing, food, and support. And so I'm happy to say that we did reach an agreement where they donated the $50,000 to $20,000 to the Trevor Project that helps with the things I just talked about, to the LA LGBTQ Center, and to the OWL Project, which is a project in my hometown that helps parents who are dealing with the death of their children at the hands of people who kill them. And as a person who's gay, a person who's been a victim of abuse, and a person who's been shot, I felt that those were the three organizations that were worth giving that money to. And I just want to say that I'm happy that I was able to resolve that behind the scenes respectfully. And even though $50,000 doesn't measure up to the embarrassment that I felt being attacked, I hope that it helps those that I am making sure it gets to, because those organizations that I'm giving to are out there doing the Lord's work. Yeah, so I was able to resolve that and get them to donate $50,000 on my behalf to these organizations that are really helpful. And it just really, I've been in this space of where I've wanted to talk on Instagram, or I'm over there at Bigo doing things, but it's just like I'm in such a happy place in my life right now that I don't want to attack nobody. I don't want to rant. I don't want to do all of the tricks that I did to get people to talk about, me or what I'm doing. Like, here it is. This is what it is. And I just felt like in that moment, it was a teachable opportunity to that person that they could, handle or settle their debt to me, because I felt like they had given me that they were now in debt because of how they decided to act out. But more importantly, now to use my relationship and that opportunity to help people who need it. So that, shout out to the Trevor Project, to the OWL movement, and also to the LGBTQ Center in Los Angeles, who gracefully received those donations.
So there's two things that popped out to me watching that video. Number one, I have been cussed out or called bad names by broke people. Like I don't know anybody that I could bill 50K for talking
Right.
to me crazy. So that's amazing that you had the right people saying the wrong things to you. And number two, we having all these conversations about reparations. And it's just so funny how we sometimes don't realize that when something bad happens to you, you can literally do something substantially to make up for it, right? Like to your point, 50K doesn't make up for being called that word or the disrespect that you felt and how that scarred you, but it's now being able to use as a point to like leverage it to help other people. So look, I'm here for reparations, be they personal or federal, and whoever cut that check, please say something crazy to me, because I got a couple of organizations myself that I would like you to cut a check for.
Now, Jason, my question is, did this person apologize?
Right.
Did they ever apologize, or they just put the money up, or like, did that person ever understand your standpoint, why that's wrong? Did they come to that full circle moment?
Well, what's crazy is I actually, an apology was one of the things that I said I wanted at first, because I wanted this person to talk to me in my face and own what they had said and what they had done. But then I thought about it, right? What do you say? Sorry for calling you a faggot? You know what I mean? Like, an apology really isn't going to change what happened. The $50,000 will add to some change. And so I spent like a weekend processing what happened, processing how I wanted to deal with it, processing how I wanted to address it. I get accused all the time of moving the gay agenda or for promoting homosexuality. And of course, as we're going to get into in this show, there's so much homophobia, like the homophobia of what's happening on social media right now, and also from those that have large voices in the culture, is really interesting. And for me, it's surfacing a lot of reactions, because I don't walk in a room and say, "Hey, who's straight?" I don't walk in a room and say, "Okay, nobody asked me to fuck your pussy." Like, I don't talk like that.
Right.
I don't
Thank
talk
God.
like that. There doesn't have to be declarations made. There doesn't have to be announcements made. But I'm really just surprised at how loud the homophobia is these days.
I
Mm.
have a quick
That's a
question,
commercial,
Jason, because
obviously.
somebody's going to say this in the comments. I can feel it. What was the context? Because somebody's going to be like, well, maybe he was joking and he said it and you just got, sensitive. Was the context, what was the context for how it was said to you? Because I still can't believe somebody said that to your face.
Yeah, the person, literally, I just bumped into the person, spoke to them. They didn't say anything to me, and then they decided to call me a faggot.
Mm.
And
Oh,
without, I don't want to get into too much, because then it starts to reveal who it was and this and that. But I will
right.
say that, the way it was handled and how it was facilitated and the people that intervened, I can't thank them enough for how they handled it, how they supported me, how they got behind me, how they got involved with the conversation, and how they helped to hold that party accountable. And I'm sure at some point, there'll be a conversation had about it, and people will point back to this interview. But it's one of those things where, again, like, I'm also growing as an individual. I'm looking at, like, you guys know I've been on this whole journey of self-love, and we've been talking about self-love, self-acceptance. And when you really want to love yourself, you have to take time to think about your actions and the actions that others play in your life and how you want to address it. Before Jason Lee, oh my God, it would have been a headline, it would have been a viral video, it would have been this, and that. And some people think I'm boring now. They're like, oh, he's fucking boring because he's not. Look, you want that crazy wild side? That nigga's still here. He on gagging with Jason Lee, and here sometimes he gonna pop up too. But I'm also thankful to people who are allowing me to grow and speak from the heart, less from just the chest, and it was one of those
Mm-hmm.
situations where I had to take a whole weekend because I literally could not process what was happening. One, people do not attack me like that, especially people in the industry. Two, you know, and although the person was intoxicated, it's Jason Lee you're talking to, and at the end of the day, you know what the fuck I do, and I think that was part of the like shock in it all when everybody started to find out about it because they were like, oh shit, this is going to be a colossal size train wreck. But
Right.
I had to take time, I had to talk to people, my close inner circle, I had to process it. I had to, on one hand, I was accepting the fact that somebody had called me a faggot. I had never been called a faggot to my face in my whole life. So that was part of I had to accept that. The other part was I start thinking of young kids who go to school and who are beaten or ridiculed or attacked and then have no safe ground to come home to because their parents don't accept them and they then don't have any identification of that journey that they may find themselves going in. And I just think about those people and I'm just like, it really bothered me. It really bothered me because I was a kid who did not have anybody to defend me. I didn't have my family. I was in group homes, foster homes. I was abandoned, abused, whatever. And I remember how that felt. And so now where I'm at in my life, I just there's just no way that I'm gonna let that go by. And yeah, I could have reacted for clicks, but this was not a clickable moment. This was a what is the solution to this issue moment? How can I use my platform and the fear that these people have of me doing something about this publicly to benefit people privately? How can I use my platform to carry on the conversation? That's why today's show is important to me because there's so many topics on here of celebrities who have become so ingrained in wanting to have these aggressive ass perspectives on homosexuality. And I challenge these bitches to come here to this show to have the conversation because I could tell you, you can't have it at the Breakfast Club. You can't have it with Joe, but you can't have it with nobody else because they're not gay. You can have it here because I'm going to ask you questions from the lenses of somebody who was called a faggot. And words have power. And I think, I don't know, Blue Damage, what I love about the three of us is I do really feel like there's a really good balance on our cast, like on our
Yeah, there
show.
is.
You have DJ Damage, who's a heterosexual single father who can embrace diversity both in religion and in sexuality and just people in general. And then you have Blue, who's, who got all my fans on Bigo signing up for her courses. I don't know what the hell courses she
They
got to
love
do.
me over there. Yes, they do. They're all on there. It's great.
They on my panels telling me I need to go through an emotional course or whatever.
Jason, actually, I'm going to gift you the next one. I'll give you a free ticket to join our next course because
I
you would have
I
loved it.
I spoke at Damages. I would love to go through it so I know what I'm talking about.
Please,
But
you would
but
love it.
but you're well rounded, very educated. You understand our issues as a Black community, the diversity and sexuality, even for you. And I just, I know that um, we're a very embracing group of people. We embrace diversity. We embrace other people. We don't shun or shy away from or be uncomfortable with, exploring people's perspectives. But I could tell you what's happening now with just everything we're going to talk about today and what happened to me. Um, I just can't help but imagine that it happens to people that don't have half the platform, half the courage to have the voice, or half the relationships to address it the way that I did. So.
Jason Lee, do you know who your soul sister is now? Who officially, as you were talking, I was thinking about the whole time. You are now the Mary J. Blige of podcasts because Mary J. No, I'm being serious. Mary J. Blige had a really rough childhood. She turned her pain into amazing music, and we all got addicted to seeing her sing from a place of pain. And the minute she got happy, we were like, "Oh man, the songs don't hit the same anymore." And people started dragging her for getting healthy and finding love and doing all these good things. And then she pivoted and like started doing like Oscar worthy performances and doing something else. And so
Yeah.
people are attached to you because of how you turned your pain into power. They are used to seeing you in pain. Healthy Jason, they're not used to it. And they're getting annoyed because how dare you heal? Because I found comfort in seeing you be in pain too. So screw
Yeah.
them. Mary J. Blige bounced back. So can you.
Mary J. Blige and the
You were the
J's for
Mary J.
Jason.
Blige of podcasts,
Listen,
Jason.
look, I'll take it. The thing about it is, don't get me wrong. I'm still highly opinionated. I'm still gonna give you that flair, and I'm still going, no pun intended, get off in that ass when I got to. But I also have, and I've said this. If you go back and watch our old shows, I said I'm like the cross. I'm like Wendy and Oprah with a dick. I am gonna
Oh,
tell it like I mean it, but I also have compassion, and I have compassion for kids. I have compassion for my
I love
community.
that.
I have compassion for the Black community. I just want to live in a better world where people can just embrace that there are other people not like them that live here. You know, I watched the video on Hollywood Unlocked of them beating this 65-year-old Asian woman, a man kicking her in
Mm.
the face. I mean, like, this is the world that kids are inheriting, and it's not fair. And even though I look back on my childhood and think, like, damn, a lot happened when I was a kid too, and it's all in my book. um it just seems like it's getting progressively worse, and I want to do what I can to hopefully make people think a little different, or feel a little different. We ain't gotta be the same, but I mean, who cares how people are living their life? Who cares what race people are? Like, I don't care about none of that. I don't care.
Not gonna cry was playing in my head the whole time we were talking. That was beautiful, Jason.
Mary J. Blige
Mary
and the
J.
J stands for Jason. No
Right? Oh my
question.
God, that totally tracks.
I'm not dealing with y'all. Listen, another thing that's playing in my head, and what I'm not going to cry about, is the bullshit that I'm hearing about this Derek Chauvin case. You know, he was the police
Mm.
officer who murdered George Floyd. We saw him with his knee on his neck. He's now trying to defend what happened with him by saying that Derek Chauvin actually died of a drug overdose. And you know what came to mind when I heard this was that idea that you can inflict injury. I mean, pain. What is it? Insult on injury.
Insult to
Injury.
injury.
Yep.
Like, you
Yep.
already injured our community and the world of humanity by the display of just pure negligence and disregard for human life by literally killing a man in front of the world for the world to see.
Mhm.
But now you insult our intelligence and our empathy as human beings around the world. An incident that was bad, that brought the world together in support of our community, and now you're trying to play us like some
Hmm.
dumb, ignorant, blind bitches. That to me has me so frustrated, and I know you all have seen it. What do you think?
I am very upset because whenever I think about Derek Chauvin, the first person I think about is Dylan Roof, and how Dylan Roof was
Mm.
allowed to sit at a church and point blank murder all those people at Emmanuel after Bible study. And then he still was able to go to Burger King, get lunch, and then make it to jail safely. And so the fact that a mass murderer was showed more grace than George Floyd, who, even if everything Derek said that he did, still deserved to be alive and have his day in court. I'm just disgusted that they still think that there's any excuse for what happened. There is no excuse for what happened, Derek, and this is why your wife left your ass, because she knows it too. Your own family doesn't agree with what you did. He's disgusting to me. He's absolutely disgusting.
No, absolutely disgusting. And I'm just happy we're talking about it. And everybody watching this, please tweet about it, repost it, Instagram it, because I do not feel like this case is getting the attention that it deserves. So
Yeah.
I'm just happy we're speaking about it, but it's nasty. Regardless of what you think George Floyd did, it wasn't it wasn't cause for execution. It don't matter what you thought he did. He wasn't supposed to die that day. But I just want everybody, I'm glad we're speaking about it, but there's not enough coverage on this case. It just absolutely isn't, and that's giving me red flags and bad signs that this man may walk, and hopefully not. So let's keep putting pressure on this case, and let's keep representing for real. That's all I
Well,
want to
It's,
and
say.
I'll tell you what it
yeah.
screams for me. I'll tell you what it screams for me is white privilege. And the thing
Yep.
about white privilege is that there literally are, and I know you're saying, Jason, where have you been? You just woke up. No, I've been saying this. I've been saying this. I've been doing it. It's been embodied in all the work that I've done around social topics and the and worker movements in and outside the union for years. white privilege basically is the second standard, is the double standard to how we move about in this country and in this world, right? There are the rules for white people, which is they ain't got no rules, and then there's the rules for black people. And when I look at what's happening with this case, this is the part that bothers me. Damage, you're raising a young black king. He could literally be killed by a police officer on camera in front of the world to see and have a worldwide revolution and still not get the respect while he's in his grave. There could still be an injustice on top of the murder
Mm-hmm.
because of the color of his skin. Now, the audacity that there would even be this level of white privilege in today's society, given the fact that y'all stole a country from people, then brought some people over to build the country for free, then told us, "Oh, we don't belong here." It's the audacity for me, and I'm just really taken aback at the idea that, and I know we have the justice system and all that, but I pray that there is a jury that is sitting up there saying, "Nah, bitch, don't play with me, don't play with me,"
I hope.
because I'd be that one juror playing around until we got to that verdict, and then I would light your ass up with the electric chair.
It also makes us really realize about the double-edged sort of hashtag activism, because I think what, to
Mm.
Damage's point about the fact that he, and even Jason mentioned, a whole world global movement was created on the back of George Floyd, right? But I think a lot of people, they hashtagged him, and I don't have a thing against hashtag activism because it has a place, but because they shared the hashtag, they had the pictures, they have George Floyd shirts. That was last year, and in their minds they did their part. It's over. They forgot to
Mm-hmm.
humanize him as a man with a family that's still grieving. And I think sometimes we turn humans into symbols, and we forget that there's still people with families left behind that are suffering, that are still seeking justice. So for all of you who were screaming Breonna Taylor and George Floyd and every other hashtag last year, we're going to ask that you still remember that they're people, and that you think about their families, and that you keep screaming their names. Like, it's not
Well,
just a movement, it's a family.
no, I'll go a step further and say that you all watching are the reason why he could do this, why he could say this, because you stopped marching, you stopped chanting, you stopped going outside. Social movements, Instagram, Facebook, wherever you post, Twitter, Black Twitter, all of those places that you place these names or say her name or whatever it is, their hashtag, as Blue was saying, that is an awareness campaign. You want to bring awareness to it, so you're sharing it on social media, so that way the world can keep adding to the momentum that you're building in the movement. The movement is the marching, the petitioning, the sitting outside and going to jail, refusing to move, taking real aggressive steps, building alliances, building coalitions around an issue. That is real shit. That's real action. The shit that Sean King does, I don't care what anybody says. Sean King is a master at gaslighting. We can say that he is a person that just sends information and whatever, but that information and all that money that you're making should be turning into grassroots organizing efforts to build collaborative momentum to eradicating racism. And, again, God bless all of you out there doing the work. Shout out to Tamika Mallory and those of you that are out there
Mhm.
doing the work. And I'll even say shout out to those that are building awareness. But once you build awareness and you agitate the fuck out of a people, you're supposed to tell them what we can do about it. And I think because the momentum was let off of these police officers, the fact that, as Damage says, you could tell some funny shit's probably gonna happen where something doesn't go the way we all expected. The fact that Breonna
Yeah.
Taylor still doesn't have justice is because we let our knee off their neck. No pun intended. We let our knee off their
Mm-hmm.
necks.
And we do it every
Yeah,
time. We get
we
distracted.
need a game plan, guys. Like, I think the activism and the awareness is the first step, but I think we often fail to get across the finish line by having it show up in real life. And that's what, unfortunately, the George Floyd case is starting to show us. And I hope to God we're wrong. I really hope we're wrong on this one, and that somebody does something to make this have a moment of justice for his family. But I'm not holding my breath.
But like you said, yeah, but like you said earlier, man, we need more compassion for each other and legitimate compassion, because if you had legitimate compassion, if you're not just trying to follow the crowd or be a part of a wave, a social media wave, you would still be fighting for this person because you actually care. You care about that person's family. It's not just about a hashtag or people liking your post or reposting you. We need legit compassion in our community. So that's the plan. When you say, what's the game plan? We need a game plan. We need to legit have compassion for each other as a community. And it has to start now, for real.
Well, think about it, right? What if this was your child? What if this was you? How would you want your friends and your community and your
Mm-hmm.
culture to rally behind you if your voice wasn't here to do it for you? Think
Exactly.
about it in that case. My heart bleeds when I see like the boy that was killed in New York at the grocery store. Remember the guy that was slaughtered to death with the
Yeah.
machetes and all that? I was at Wildin' Out bawling my eyes out for this kid who I didn't even know because I looked like him as a kid. He looked like he could have been my son. I just couldn't imagine his last moments of trying to get protection getting murdered. The same with the little boy. I think his name is Gabriel Fernandez on the documentary on Netflix, the kid who was
Yes.
beaten by his
Oh
mother's boyfriend,
yeah.
beaten to death. You know, when I just think about that and like Damage said, the compassion that we have to have as human beings, I just don't understand why people don't stay enraged until there is a permanent solution. And this one, the thing that scares me about this one is that George Floyd's case was so public and so big, and the impact was so swift, and the frustration felt around the world was so powerful that for it to just dissipate and for us to be here talking about it this way is scary because they literally killed
Yeah.
him right in front of us. So,
For several minutes, for like 8 or 9 minutes. It was a
mhm.
slow death.
And I watched the whole thing. I had to because I needed to feel that rage. I watched the entire thing.
You
I
know
didn't
what though?
turn it off. I watched the entire thing.
I will play devil's advocate for those of you who are experiencing COVID fatigue and you're like, Blue, I can't even
Hmm.
damage Jason. That's cute for y'all, but I can barely keep my lights on or keep my anxiety attacks down, let alone worrying about another family. There are still other ways to help. You can cut a check to your favorite organization that is doing the work. You can support people who are doing the work. So even if you can't physically roll up your sleeves and go and protest, there are a million different ways to help outside of just spreading
You can
awareness via
sign
social media.
petitions. You can call your state's senator to help with legislation. You
Exactly.
can, there are things you phone bank. You can make phone. I mean, there are things you can do. And I just feel like now they're on their way to getting away with murder, and we're literally watching it. And it's gonna play out here, and we'll keep talking about it.
And, but what do you feel like the psychological impact will be, after this? Because I feel like you watch, I'm raising a young black man to watch on TV people be killed by the police for no reason or for reasons that shouldn't deserve to be killed for. It's like, how do you have a sense of life and purpose if you can die for no reason? How do we expect our young men to care and value each other's lives when no one values it? No one values it. And that's what scares me about
Well,
this
let
whole thing.
let me ask you the question: how do you explain your son's value, the value of your son's life to him after this?
For me, and this is why, parenting is so important. I can fill my son up with those things, but I didn't come up with a dad. I learned a lot about being a man from the streets and things I've seen on TV, unfortunately. So I'm thinking about those people, those kids that don't have a father like me that can go, hey, that's not how it's supposed to be. This is how you should carry yourself. This is how you should care about other people. Because it's not just about caring about yourself. As you can see with this case, it's also about having compassion for others. So that's what scares
But
me,
how?
Jason, the
My
people that
question
don't
is,
have
how
that.
do you explain to him the value of his life when he can see the life squeezed out of somebody that looks like him and no justice be served? Like, how do you explain that to him?
Well, I think a lot of kids grow up. I know I felt this at a point where you feel like you're not important. So giving them a sense of importance and a sense of self. And I know that sounds vague, but you have to. And Blue, maybe you could back me up because I don't
I,
always have the
I,
right
I'm,
words to.
I'm waiting for you to finish so I can back you up. But go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. But I try to give my son a sense of self and also a sense of purpose where he's not throwing his life away, where he's not just throwing away opportunities, where he cares about tomorrow. Because I'm telling you, this shit can get so rough. And Jason, you probably been there where you don't care about tomorrow. You like, I don't know when I'm going to die. I'm going to live every day like it's my last. And I feel like that's trickling down to all the homicides and all the violence we have in our community. But Blue, please help me out with this.
So you guys know I love the kids. Jason loves everybody on this panel. We love children. My very first writing job ever was with the Harvard School of Public Health, and that place was amazing because they actually did a study on this exact question that Jason just asked, and they found out that the way that you help young kids work through these feelings of helplessness is to teach them emotional intelligence. All these amazing things that Jason is learning right now in his 40s about his sense of worth and being proud in who he is despite what people say and embracing joy. When you teach emotional intelligence to children, there's actually studies that prove that they are better equipped to deal with the misogyny and the homophobia and the racism that the rest of the world feeds to them. So if your child has a sense of worth and knows how to deal with their emotions, then they know how to deal with the depression that comes from having to face a world that's not built for them. So even something as simple as, and I know this is going to be controversial but brave, something as simple as seeing Black Boy Joy via Little Nas X Seeing a happy black man be his full self might annoy the adults who are Bible thumping and saying, "Oh no, this video's so bad." But there's something that happens when little black boys see other little black boys be free, even if they're being free in a way that they don't necessarily identify with. So I
Mm.
think black joy is the answer. I think this thing that Jason's doing, we were joking about it earlier that Jason was, in Aruba and Miami. But Jason, there's something that happened to you on a molecular level when you found your joy that literally made you better equipped to deal with being called faggot, right? Like you had an ugly moment in the middle of all this joy, and that joy is what kept you buoyant. So the answer is we need to embrace black joy, because without black joy, what is the point of black liberation? What are we fighting for? Get
Well, I
happy,
think
y'all.
for
Get
well, I
happy.
think for
No,
me,
there's
it wasn't just the
truth to
Aruba and
that.
the Miami thing. I think for me, having the surgery, having to take care of myself in the recovery phase of the surgery process, having to switch up my diet, having to watch everything that goes in my mouth
That's all
on
self-love.
a
That's all
nutritional
joy.
level, and being able to pay attention, not just pay attention to it, but also manage it, micromanage it, making sure that everything I put in me is healthy. I think
Mm.
that was the beginning of it. Then, of course, then the spiritual and the emotional levels start kicking in. But what I know for sure
There's
is
value to
that, I mean,
happiness, guys. There's value.
somebody had asked the question of, what are the, emotional ramifications of all this. I think that there's going to be a lot of post-traumatic stress put on our community, even beyond what we've already been through with slavery and everything else and what happened in the civil rights movement, because we are still in a civil rights movement. It just doesn't
Yep.
look like completely what it did back in the 60s, because we don't have to sit in the back of the buses and we don't have to go through certain doors, but there are certain doors that we still can't go through. And so, I was on a call today with a network, with a conglomerate of networks, and I mean, it's a network, but they have multiple channels and
Mhm.
stuff. And they were saying to me how much they liked what I do, and they've been watching me, and how they want me to do this, and that. And the last question came down to ownership. So do you want to own a license, or do you want to come work for the network? And I didn't know the answer to that, because ownership is important. I will still always own and retain what I have, but at the same time, partnerships are great too. And I think it's just one of those things where we have to continue to protect ourselves, our culture, and each other. And I think it starts by having these kind of conversations and being very direct and blunt about them. But I think for sure that the stress, the post-traumatic stress after this, is going to be very traumatizing. Somebody else that I think is creating some traumatic distress is Lil Mama. I mean, I've been talking to Lil Mama on Clubhouse, and Lil Mama, I know you personally. You came to the show here, kind of. We taped a picture of you and we interviewed the chair for like 45 minutes because you didn't want to show up. And I know at times you could be extra, but this, I think, I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed.
I'm
I'm gonna get into
disgusted.
it. I'm gonna get into it really quick. Little Mama, there was a post that was deleted, or since has been deleted, where she says that children are too young to change their genders, and this is what she said. She said, "So children are well." Somebody posted this and said, "So children are too young to smoke cigarettes, too young to drink alcohol, too young to get a driver's license, too young to go to a club, too young to gamble, too young to rent a car, but old enough to cut off their genitals and or change their gender. This is insanity. Hashtag America." And then she went on to say, she reposted this and she said, "Depopulation at any cost. Cat fights, sword fights. Used to be a cat, now I'm a dog. Whatever to stop new life reproduction." Now, listen, I have to say this, Lil Mama. I haven't been at the show in a while because I've been on vacation. I've been moving around working. That is the most ignorant shit I've ever fucking heard from you. I've seen you do things and stunts and jumping up on stage with Jay and Alicia, and do some things that you've been chastised. They called you Bow Wow. They did all these different things. You cried on the Breakfast Club. I've had my experience with you not showing up to my show, but I think since then, we've kind of repaired that and we've gone on and had our Clubhouse moments. I know you also like to be Lil Mama from the hood and talk to niggas like you a nigga or whatever. But you referenced a child having their sexual identity crisis as a cat changing into a dog, to fucking animals. And I don't understand on what planet you thought that was cool. But when I tell you I'm not a fan of cancel culture, but I am canceling you for this, to me, because there could be no relationship with somebody that would make an equivalence to me and how I identify sexually with a cat and a fucking dog. Now, you went on
Mm.
and you got a lot of backlash, and people drug you, which they should have drug you. They should have snatched every edge you've been able to find at the Korean shop,
Oh.
and they dragged you for it. And you I guess had something to say. Let's watch this video.
So that's when I put that it's basically depopulation. So if you have little girls that like little girls, then you won't have children. If you have little boys that like little boys, then you won't have children. If you have little boys
That's
that think they're girls more so, and we believe in that notion without them even going through puberty or giving them an opportunity to figure out who they truly are, we'll have more confusion and less babies. That was my point. Now, when it comes to people who choose to be gay or choose to be lesbian or choose to change their sexuality with the mind frame of an adult, and you're able to do that on your own, I don't have anything against you. I have gay family members, I have lesbian family members, as
Yep.
well as friends.
Same.
And I don't judge grown people who make grown choices. But when we're talking about these babies, we have to be very mindful about what they're being fed. Because if my niece comes to me and she say, Auntie, I want to be a boy. And I'm like, why, Chinky? Oh, because I was watching a show with Sasa, and boys are very strong. They know how to shoot basketballs. They win when it comes to like tussling and little fights. And I'm like, well, you don't have to be a boy for that. And I can explain these
Right.
things to her that she may be confused about. But if she's telling me, I think that I am a boy, and she still feels that after she goes through puberty, I'm not going to label her insane. I'm going to listen to her, take heed, and support her. But we're talking about making children feel like they can make a choice of changing their genitals before they even go through puberty. You don't even know who you
Right.
are or what you like. Young women
Right.
are talking about BBLs and things like that before their breasts and their buttocks are even fully developed. So we
That's
have to
right.
be very sensitive and mindful when we're dealing with our children. We are not talking about grown people who can make the choice to do and be whatever they choose to do and be. We're talking about children who may even look at us later on and say, well, why did you let me do that? And it's like, I wanted to be in support of you. I wanted to let you do what made you happy. Well, Mom, I was
Let
9
me
years old.
validate
How
that
the hell
point.
do I know what's going to make me happy at 9 years old? So now while you're trying to
Exactly.
prevent hate in your children or resentment, you could be causing it as well. So I think that
Yeah.
the smartest thing to do is allow a child to fully develop into an adult and to make adult choices, just as drinking, being able to do
Hmm.
certain things on your own, you know, having
Hmm.
responsibilities, driving, checks, you know, all of these things.
Well, let me first say that there's a reason why Zaya Wade has met with Michelle Obama and you can't even get invited back to the Grammys. You know, besides that fact, the fact that there are revolutionary change makers happening at a 12-year-old level, with Zaya Wade being able to have that conversation with Michelle Obama, that was a very public thing. You know, the ignorance that was so woven into that conversation. Let me first just say that
Woo!
I don't know that there's a surgeon or a surgery center on in this country that has said that they are performing sex change operations or cutting off genitals of little kids. So what you did was you gaslit the conversation by saying something that we all would agree with, that there should not be physical transformations done on children.
There
And you
aren't any.
wove that into a conversation around sexual identity that some kids have at an earlier age than some of us when we get older. So I just want to try to unpack this
Yeah.
at a much more higher level, because the disrespectful, insulting ignorance that you display, little mama, was embarrassing. You should be embarrassed. You should be embarrassed, and you should never ever
No.
speak on this topic again. And I'm going to go on and say one more thing. She then said she wanted to start a heterosexual movement. She posted this where she
Bitch.
mentions that she wants
Mm-mm.
to start a heterosexual rights movement, an anti-LGBTQ bullying. And then she said, y'all fight so hard to be respected, and some of you not all. Get a kick out of bullying people for having an opinion. How they dress, how their hair or their makeup looks, how much money they have, etc. There are so many people afraid to give their honest opinion, because if they do, the LGBTQ plus will hear what they want and hear and take statements out of context. I don't have to prove myself by reminding people that I have loved ones of the LGBTQ plus community. When I speak, I'm not trying to hurt anyone. I'm just speaking my truth, just like you all.
Now, I don't want to cut you off because Blue, I know you have something to say, but I was one of those people that seen these videos because it wasn't just her saying that. And I'm like, wait, they're performing this on kids? So I did the research, Jason. Come to find out, like you said, there's not even a place that does that. So I'm like, what is this conversation starting from? So I just wanted to point that out there that even me, looking at this information online, I was confused. I'm like, wow, I didn't know they were doing that at this age. I thought they still had to wait to a certain age. So, like you said, that's misinformation to even start this argument and start this opinion. And now you got people commenting, and there's a lot of people like me. Even Boosie was saying it. I know you're not a fan of Boosie, but he's like, man, about Zaya, man, don't cut that person's penis off. Nobody's cutting anything off. You know what I'm saying? It's just crazy. Blue, go ahead. It's just funny when you do the research on your own, people. You find the truth. Do the research on your own.
She's an idiot. She's an idiot. And the fact that anybody, a trained monkey with Wi Fi, could literally poke holes in everything that she said for the entire time that she was talking, right? And what I think is really disgusting about this is the fact that this privilege, regardless of what adjective comes in front of it, always acts the same, whether it's male privilege, white privilege, straight privilege. Privilege is an idiot that loves to use fear and propaganda in order to distort a conversation. You know who else made those arguments? Oh, well, if you guys can do this, then what about cats and dogs? White supremacists. Back in the day, white supremacists used to say, we can't have the niggers marrying white folks because what's next? We're going to end up marrying cats and dogs. You know who else said, oh, well, if you guys are going to constantly complain, I want to have an all lives matter movement. White supremacists. Little Mama is literally taking every single page out of white supremacists and applying it against the gays. And black people do this all the time. We understand the nuance of privilege when it's racial, but the minute it's the gay community, suddenly you're the white man in the room. So I'm gonna start calling her Bob. Okay, your new name is Bob, little mama, because you were acting like a privileged white man and you're an idiot. And just like T.I. should have learned, adding ION to the end of words doesn't make you sound smart. You're an idiot, okay? You're a freaking idiot. And what was really disgusting is I actually felt bad for this loser. And I'm calling you a loser to your face. You better hope you don't see me in the street. I really felt bad for this loser because she's been crying all up and down the airwaves ever since she got clowned by everybody and their mother. And I went on Clubhouse the other night and listened to a room that she was in. I was real quiet. She didn't even know I was in there. And Jason and Damage, the way that she talked to every gay person who attempted to lovingly and respectfully explain things to her was disgusting. You are a shitty human, and I am saying it on the record. You are above reproach. I am personally canceling you. I'm personally canceling you.
I'll tell you this. This is another thing.
Disgusting.
Y'all straight people talking about gay issues. Mind your fucking business.
Mind
This
your
is
business.
not your community. This is not your community. You don't know nothing about the struggle. You don't know nothing about the evolution that all of us go through in this community. So shut the fuck up. And I'll go a step further. You want to talk about cancellation? The reason why they're so swift to cancel your ass is because everybody in the industry knows that the gay people run shit at the top because we're the most creative, we're the most flamboyant. All the gagging and all that shit that y'all want to steal, all the shit that you girls want to steal, you got it from our community. And I'm gonna go a step further. There was a lot I didn't understand about the trans community, and I had to watch Pose to really understand the trans community, the trans struggle, the trans movement, the ballroom scene. And even though I recently got attacked for my comments on Beagle about being a ballroom dancer, at Juilliard and not a ballroom scene person, wasn't in a way, in my opinion, of dissing the ballroom scene community. But I even had to take knowledge of my own words and how a clip of it can be taken a certain way. You haven't even learned from the blowback that you got from this on how to take responsibility. That you just callously moved past it and said you're going to start a anti-LGBT bullying campaign. That would be similar to white
All lives
people,
matter.
like she said, saying that they want to start an anti-Black Lives Matter campaign to keep it fair for white people. You don't sound like you have any sense whatsoever, and you're misguided. And if you think getting on Clubhouse and bullying people into listening to your narrative is going to work, that ain't going to work at Hollywood Unlocked. I encourage you to come here to the show. I doubt you will, because if you really do want to start your movement, I would love to give you my platform to try to start your movement. It's going to die here, but we'd love to welcome it. And anybody else who feels strongly about it, because I don't think you need a movement to advocate for being straight. We gay people live in a straight person's world. It's just becoming more fair to us who identify as being gay. Just as for Black people, we're all still struggling to have a balanced world for us. It always baffles me how people of color don't understand the struggle when it comes to women's rights and the struggle when it comes to the LGBT community. I just don't get it. Like, struggle is struggle is struggle. What's the problem?
I will say this though, for those of you who are not lost, little mama, you're lost. You're a lost cause. I'm never gonna think about you ever again. But for those of you who believed any of the dumb shit that she said, and you got you some Wi-Fi and learned better, please know that there is still hope for you. If you're above if you think that you can learn, there's space for you to learn, and we're open to that. It's people like her who keep taking L's over and over again and refuse to be on the right side of history. That's why she's getting canceled. You're not being canceled for making a mistake. You're being canceled because you refuse to learn from it. She refuses to learn from anything.
Little mama, you've had so many opportunities to be non-corny. Like, you've had chances and been reaccepted by people over and over and over. Mark my words, this is going to be one of the bigger battles that you have to climb because you fucked with the wrong people. And I can tell you, as somebody who's gay and on every airwave that you can check, TV, radio, podcast, Instagram, Clubhouse, Bigo, I'm telling you right now, everywhere I go, when they ask me about you, you're a clown. You're a clown. And there's no excuse for it. And please don't hit me with you got my number, you could have called me shit, because you had my motherfucking number when that dumb anti-gay shit came out of your mouth. You're a homophobe. I'm telling you right now, little mama, you are a homophobic clown at the circus. And we're all watching you dance for peanuts. And if you don't truly get to your heart and acknowledge that there is a kid out there who believes that you believe that they don't have the right to identify with themselves, because you've woven that in misinformation of them getting their genitals cut off and trying to switch like a cat with a dog. I hope you hear how stupid you sound. That there's no excuse for that. Well, speaking of Zaya Wade and, all the drama around, kids coming out and, having their transformation, Waka Flocka was recently under fire because on an episode of his show, his daughter came out to him, or was talking about including her girlfriend in an event, and people were quick to drag him over comments that he had made about Zaya Wade when she came out, and people were pissed and felt like there was a contradiction on his opinions when it came to his own child versus his opinions that were unsolicited about somebody else's. And so Zoe, who's a comedian on Wild 'N Out, I did a couple of seasons with Zoe. He sounded out, and this is what he had to say.
This has nothing to do with the children, like Waka Flocka's daughter. This is just grown-ups, people in general, the world. It's so hypocritical, and it pisses me the F off that, okay, his daughter is 16, and now she has come out that she likes girls, and that she wants a girl to be her date to her quinceañera or whatever. Now, mind you, Waka a couple of months ago was bashing somebody about their gay son. Not bashing, but, didn't agree. But now when it's your own, this is why I tell people, be careful how you talk about people and their children or anybody, period, because one day you're going to have to deal with it. So it's just funny in the comments, everybody's like, oh, he's such a good dad. He agrees letting his daughter be her. But when you talk about Dwayne Wade and Zaya, how dare he? And Zaya's only 13. Calm down, Zoe. How dare he? Disgusting. But when it's a girl, everybody's just so, oh, this is amazing, great. That's bullshit. And it makes me so mad. The world is so fake. I'm so sweaty, but whatever. So at the end of the day, what I'm saying is everybody should be treated fairly, no matter who you like. You know what I'm saying? I don't care if you're same-sex girl, same-sex guy, straight, whatever. You should all be treated fairly with no judgment.
Okay, well, after that surfaced, Tammy Rivera responded with a video. She was quick to let Zoe know what she felt, and this is what she said.
Oh, he bashed Zaya, or then you went back and said, well, he didn't agree. So a person not allowed to have an opinion of how they feel without being a basher or hate or be labeled as going against something or hating someone, they can't have an opinion. That being said, never once did he ever disrespect Zara. Not once did he ever say he matter of fact, he said, I can't tell nobody how to parent their kids. But are people allowed to grow? Are people allowed to change? Because it seems like you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. You get what I'm saying? It's like, at once upon a time, I didn't believe in gay marriages because I grew up being taught from certain people around me that was wrong. I met my friend Shad, and he educated me. and set me down and told me why he felt the way I felt was wrong or my opinion was wrong. And to this day, I would never say no ignorant shit like that again, ever. Because I understand now and I'm educated now. Trying to find the positivity out of the situation. Like, well, damn, maybe Walker did grow. You know what I'm saying? I'm glad it took for Charlie to see him, or maybe that was the situation. Instead, you decide, oh, but if it was a boy, he wouldn't. Well, god damn, can a person be who they are? Can a person grow? Instead, you still try to find the negativity out of something so positive.
You know, I mean, she makes a good argument. I mean, you know, on one hand, I know that when Waka had a lot to say about the LGBT community before he was drugged, especially around Zaya, and you know, since then, his daughter coming out, maybe he's had a change of a heart, and maybe he has grown. But you know, Tammy sounded she sounded not happy about people's reaction to it.
Just as a heterosexual man and father, mind your own fucking household. I think it just starts there. Mind your own household. When it comes to, and I don't want to say her name Wade, Zaya Wade.
Mm-hmm.
I listened to Dwayne Wade on I Am Athlete podcast, and he talked about at 3 years old, him and his wife asked the question to themselves like, "What if?" And at 8 years old, Zaya, I want to make sure I'm saying it right. Zaya Wade wrote a letter in school and said that she is gay. And then moving forward came to a position saying, I might want to identify as something different. That's their household. That's their journey. That's something they watched for years. I would never want to speak on that. So for everybody out there, you know, I'm not in the community. Mind your own household. I don't want nobody speaking on my son, and I don't want to speak on yours. Just mind your household. That's all I wanted to say real quick.
No, that's beautiful. And I'm happy that we're talking about Tammy and Waka after talking about Little Mama, because they show the two sides of ignorance and how one has hope and one doesn't. Little Mama, she's canceled, right? But you can tell from the way Tammy talks. Number one, I completely understand that as a mother and as just an overprotective woman, how she might feel like you talked about my husband and my child, I'm going to see red. I understand her initial need to defend them. But what was missing from this was emotional intelligence. Because to Damage's point, the minute they asked you about Zaya Wade and you had any comment to make other than that's not my household, I don't have a comment on somebody else's child, you immediately opened up your own household. So Zoe is right.
Yes.
It is deeply hypocritical to speak in any capacity about somebody else's child, but then act a fool when you get the thing back that you initiated. So she's completely wrong. Zoe is right. She's being a hypocrite. But I understand why she's being a hypocrite, because parents are defensive. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, if your father never, ever, ever showed up to you for Christmas or your birthday or any day, and you spent 10 years of your life never knowing your father, and one day he shows up with a new car and a birthday cake and says, hey, son, happy birthday. And you're like, you're not going to talk about the fact that you haven't been around all this time and you failed me? And he's like, but I'm here now. Why you got to be so negative? Why would that bother you? You know why? Because he didn't first acknowledge the mistake before pivoting to the solution. The problem with what Waka did, the problem with Tammy is they're not sitting in acknowledgement. They're rushing to the solution. They're rushing to Waka's evolution, but they're not acknowledging the mistake enough. And so they're forcing us to have to ignore all the anger that was righteous on our parts and saying, well, look, we're fixing it now. We're fixing it now. Yes, sis, you're fixing it now, but the damage that you've done, you need to sit in that and take that L before we can pivot to forgiving you. You can't rush us through the process.
On the other hand, though, let me play devil's advocate, right? Because I do see the Lil Mama bullshit different than this, right? And it's not,
exactly.
and I know all these people. So I know Waka, I know Tammy, I know Lil Mama. Where I see it very different is that, one, I expect a mother to stand up for her child. So I expect, and her husband. So I expect Tammy to defend her man and her child the way that she did. I saw Tammy acknowledge the lessons she learned from her friend Shad, who I also know, on acceptance versus tolerance, which is what I spoke about in my video earlier, where I talked about accepting a community, not tolerating them. And I heard her say that she learned. And so through the lens that I saw her reaction, I saw her have compassion for understanding, but at the same time being a mama bear protecting her family. And so I can have a deep respect and appreciation for that. For Waka Flocka, having had his experience and having been drugged, I'm not a fan for dragging somebody for their whole life when they genuinely want to pivot to a place of understanding or compassion or acceptance. I don't know that Waka is still out saying homophobic things or attacking other people's child. I agree with what Damage said. Mind your business, mind your household, because the minute you open it up for the minute you don't, you open it up for yourself to be slain with the same dragons. Now I will tell you, two rules at Hollywood Unlocked: we don't attack children and we don't out people. Why? Because those are two very sensitive subjects that hurt people and cause people to be hurt and want to hurt you back. And I think that Waka and Tammy, what I will say to you is that I hope you are understanding that the blowback that you're getting is the same thing, if not a little bit less than what probably Isaiah Wade or Dwayne and Gabrielle and their family felt when Waka had something to say. And so, yeah, I feel like if people mind their business when it comes to the kids, you won't have this situation. But I'm also a firm believer that our communities of people who are marginalized need to get to a place of being able to embrace people who do change, the people that used to hurt us that do change. I'm not saying they're allies. Hold on, I'm not finished yet. I'm not saying they're allies in our community, but I don't feel like they're still the detractors that they probably were some time ago.
So so everything you said is great, but this is the part that's completely missing and that I'm going to always have a problem with and push back on. They invalidated Zoe's valid point before talking about compassion. It was totally capable of having that whole conversation without invalidating a valid point. And that's where they're going to always lose me. You didn't have to invalidate this man's valid ass point, his factually accurate point, before you talked about loving kindness and forgiving and good vibes. So that's the part where they're going to always lose.
But when people disagree with me online, when people disagree with me online and arguing this and that, Zoe is gay, but he's not my representative. He doesn't represent me. I represent me. I'm my voice. Zoe is one person that has one opinion for himself. He didn't speak for my community. He didn't go to the gay council, because there isn't one, to say what is our collective gay opinion. And so what I'm not going to do is ever let any gay figurehead take my voice and control my point of view, right? So Zoe said what Zoe said. The other thing is, as a person, but I'm just reacting to what I hear you saying. If you didn't say that, you can clarify. But what I hear you saying is that they didn't acknowledge him. If you drag me, I don't got to acknowledge the damn thing you say. I don't need anybody that I've ever drugged for something that I felt was wrong to come and say, Jason, I hear you. I understand what you're saying. I empathize with your point of view. I agree with you. You don't have to validate me. You can say what you have to say as long as you get the point. And from the video that I saw with Tammy, it looked like she got the point.
I'm going to say this. The one thing that we all agree on, and I'm going to come back to this, is we all just said in our own different ways that the minute you mention somebody else's child, you cannot then be shocked when your child is mentioned. And that is a universal point that they invalidated.
But let me say this, right? We're all agreeing that you should keep people's children out your mouth. We all agree. Damage started. You said, I said, we all agree. But she doesn't have to acknowledge that point for that point to not be a valid point.
And this is where you both are saying the same thing. You know why Tammy doesn't have to acknowledge it? Because Tammy is responding in protection of her family. Waka Flocka is probably the individual that needs to hold himself accountable, because he made both of those statements. And maybe in further interviews, he will do that, because like she said, as his wife, she knows how much he's grown. We don't know, Waka. At one point you said this, now you're saying this. And like you said, Blue, you can't just show up changed. However, I am going to give Waka Flocka and that entire family an opportunity to speak on this, because in that rant Tammy did, it did seem like they were getting to a point of understanding what went wrong.
So Jason, have you actually seen the video of Waka's response to all of this?
No, I've been in Miami. What did he say?
Yeah, apparently you're not the only person here with receipts. Can you guys play that beautiful bean footage for us of Waka's response?
2021 adults, y'all so goddamn lame about talking about kids. Like, the way y'all talk about kids, that shit is crazy. That shit is fucking crazy, man. Y'all folks is just, who raised y'all? That's a serious question for y'all. Are you raising a teenager? Are you a parent? Do you know how I feel? Like, I'm not supportive of nothing. This is my daughter. The word supportive don't matter when you're a parent, because you automatically doing that. Y'all tripping, man. And everybody that I see, like, oh, they bashing Waka. Man, I done been in the shootouts, all kind of shit as a kid. What the fuck do I care about y'all with this country ass shit y'all doing? Nigga, I done been to hell and back, man. Cut it out.
Well, I didn't see that.
Yeah, guys. So that's what I was trying to say. I believe in giving people chances to evolve. Tammy, I believe her heart. I really believe that she's a mother who's defending her husband and her child. And I was rooting for them to be on the right side of history. And then Waka came out with that video and it got
Yeah.
awkward.
Well, again, I think there needs to be, there needs to be more
Look at
opportunities for
damage.
people to understand. No, I think there needs to be more opportunities for people to understand acceptance versus tolerance. You know what I
Yep.
mean? And it looks like Tammy got the lesson on acceptance, and it looks like Waka appears to be tolerating. And until you get to a full level of acceptance, you're going to find yourself on the same end of it all. And I don't think that. The one thing I did get from Waka's video was that there's this ego thing where you have to prove that you've been through more than being attacked by the gay community. It's similar to the thing that Little Mama was saying, which is what I hear you saying, Blue. Look, listen,
Yeah.
people. Gay people ain't worried about y'all. Y'all worried about us. We're not worried about your children. Don't be worried about ours. And everybody just needs to move on and let a sleeping dog lie. Another sleeping dog that needs to lie is Whitney Houston, because I can't even
Oh.
believe that Rosie O'Donnell has come out and is speaking about the queen of music. She recently did an interview, which I don't know why they're interviewing Rosie O'Donnell, because she's not doing anything. But they talked about her relationship with Whitney Houston, and she said that she brought up Whitney's sexuality, and she said that she was, quote, conflicted with her sexuality, and then even went on to talk about the Baptist church and the black community, which I thought was interesting. She says Whitney was troubled by, I think, the gay part of her life and didn't want it exposed. It's hard in black culture to accept gayness. It's culturally more difficult, I think. And the church, the Baptist church, weighed heavily on her growing up in the church and singing gospel. I think that there was a lot of conflict about that. Rosie O'Donnell, sir, let me explain
What?
something to you. You don't get to speak about the black community. What?
Oh
So
Lord.
we live in a world now where this nigga can just come and talk about our community because she ain't got nothing better to do. I
You
don't
just call Rosie
understand.
O'Donnell a nigga?
I don't understand, sir, why you think that it's okay for you to talk about our community. Now, would I agree that in our community, we don't fully embrace and accept and understand the gay community? Clearly, you've heard it, right? But homophobia is something that exists outside our community too. And maybe there was the Baptist church that had some influence over Whitney. But I have a couple questions, sir. Why would you talk about Whitney Houston sexuality while she's dead? Number two, why are you talking about the black community in the Baptist church, which you have no right to, because you don't belong you don't belong in our black church and in our black community. So why would you speak about it? This goes back to, again, white people having privilege, thinking that they can speak on any fucking thing that they want. And I'm sorry to you and anybody else, Whitney Houston and her whole life, unless it has to do with her accolades for music and how much she loved her daughter, should not be on the tip of none of your tongues.
Mm, mm. Unfortunately, I feel like we opened that door. I think it hits the nail on the head, and we get pissed when Rosie O'Donnell does it. It brings up one of the greats. But for the past few years, decades, man, I've watched white people speak on our culture, and we just let them on TV, on different platforms. So I think this issue needs to be solved overall. But Rosie, come on now, like what the? And she's giving history updates that everybody know. In the black community, they're having a hard time. Everybody fucking know that. Nobody
Since when did Rosie O'Donnell replace Al Sharpton and Maxine Waters with updates from the black community?
Yeah,
Do you know who I blame? Do you know who I blame? I blame all you N-words who keep giving out tickets to the barbecue every time somebody's a TikTok dance and happens to be white. Stop giving out tickets to the barbecue, y'all. The bar is very low these days. And this is one thing I cannot stand. Ooh, you're invited to the barbecue because you can do the Dougie. Shut up. One of the things that I cannot stand is the fact that a lot of white allies don't realize if you are an ally, you are on the side. The minute you center yourself, you are no longer an ally, you are a Karen. So Rosie O'Donnell, her whiteness was showing because once again, she had to make it about her by using Whitney Houston, which is a weird, weird flex.
So weird.
You're a weird lady. Ugh.
Not your weird lady.
You're a weird lady. That's all I have to
Not
say.
You
your
called her
weird lady.
homie and bro and sir.
Right, Jason.
Nigga.
Mm-mm. You're a weird lady.
See,
You're
that's
just
her
weird.
problem. That's why she thinks she can say this stuff.
Listen. This show has so many ups and downs in it that I hope that it inspired you to be more inclusive. It started out real inspirational and emotional and ended on some nigga shit. But either way, listen, I told y'all I'm Oprah and Wendy with a dick. And I'm gonna dick on out of here because I don't know where this show is landing. Bottoms up, never mind. Bye.
We missed you, Jason.
I miss y'all too. Bye. All right, look, that was a great show. And make sure you keep coming back because we got all types of amazing interviews and topics that are going to make you go crazy.
That's right. That means like, subscribe, do everything you need to do to make sure you stay up to date with what we got going on.
And ladies, stay tuned in because you know I have your back.
And listen, make sure that you're commenting below because even though I say I don't read it on the show, that's all I do when it's over. Peace.